Ahoy hoy, and welcome back to On the Bench, where today we have something a little bit special, or at least a little bit something special for me. Now, this is the Tudor Black Bay, not the Black Bay 58. This is the standard Black Bay, the Black Bay Heritage, the normal Black Bay, depending on when you bought it and where you're looking on the internet. Now, Tudor do like nothing more than coming out with confusing names when it comes to Black Bay series, and there are a lot of Black Bay watches. This, as I said, is what used to be known as the Heritage, now just the Black Bay. We have the Black Bay 58, the ubiquitous 58 that is absolutely everywhere, which is named after a year, whereas you have a lot of other ones that aren't named after a year, they're named after a size, where you have the Black Bay Standard, which is this one known previously as a Heritage, but looking at their current website, it's now gone, the Heritage name, it's now just the Black Bay. We have the Black Bay 41, and this is a 41mm Black Bay. However, if you were to order blind a Black Bay 41 off the internet, you are not going to get this watch. You are going to get a non-diver dress watch. Despite the 58 being a diver at 39.5mm wide, we have the Black Bay 41, completely different watch. We have the 36, which is a 36mm. We have the Black Bay 32, that is 32mm. The 58, which is named after a year. And this one, the 41, that they've had to call the Heritage to differentiate it now from the 38 and everything else. It's a very confusing affair, but this is the standard, the Heritage, the normal Black Bay. And I've left Heritage in the title because it is the name that I know it as, the name that I bought it under, and probably the name that a lot of people looking online will be looking for as well. Confusing name gubbins aside, this is, as ever, not an unboxing video. The watch inside has been worn, tested, put through its paces, so I can give you a proper review. Regarding the outer box, we have a very nice faux grained leather cardboard box, and inside a further inner box. Let's move this out of the way, this polyplastic lining that they have in there revealing the inner box. As I said, we're going to come back to the box in a little bit more detail later, but underneath the watch we have the various bits of candy it comes with. This is a plastic bezel protector which sits on top of the watch when it first arrives. As of this, we have our international guarantee, we have a general gubbins booklet, and a user manual, which, to be fair, isn't particularly needed with this model, but nice to have anyway. So let's spend a little bit of time looking at the watch itself. The case is standard 3167 steel with highly polished sides, a brushed top surface. The bezel on this one is black ceramic and 60 clicks per rotation, as opposed to, for instance, 120 that you'd have on a Submariner that's compared to. We have a domed sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating on the inside, which does a very, very good job. We have vintage tinted applied luminous indices, and the lume on this is actually quite impressive. As good as Seiko, I hate to say it, no, but it does a good enough job. It will last in the dark for a good 20 minutes, half hour or so before it really starts getting a bit dim, but it does a fairly good job. The outer chapter ring numbers are not loomed on this particular model. These are base metal underneath, but we do have a luminescent marker at the top just to help us index where that's laid if we're in the dark or we have moved the dial around. It is, as we've said in the intro, a 41mm case, and underneath the hood we have Tudor's MT5602 movement, which is in-house. It is COSC certified. 28,800 beats per minute. It is a high beat watch with 25 joules, and it's rated to -4 to +6 seconds a day. I personally find this model, my own one, is accurate about 3 seconds fast a day. So over a week, we're gaining about 20 seconds, which is very, very good. Inside that MT5602 that's powering the watch, we will find, I believe, both a silicon balance and hairsprings on this, which makes it highly anti-magnetic. I can't find the actual Gauss reading listed anywhere on the web for you to see, but with silicon internal parts, it's not only better when it comes to magnetic fields, it also extends the service gap, which is required on this particular model, 10 years for the standard Black Bay between services, and that is very impressive for a Swiss watch. Over and above the silicon parts, we have a transverse bridge over the balance wheel, which gives it extra shock absorbing capability, again, over its competitors. And that all fits into about 6.5 millimeters in height in the case. Now, we might as well here talk about the differences between this and the Black Bay 58, the ubiquitous 58, which is absolutely everywhere, which does look similar, but not when they're side to side. The 58 is 39 millimeters, whereas this is 41 millimeters. The 58 has the smaller MT5402 movement, also COSC certified, but it is smaller, which is how they can fit the 58 movement into that smaller case, because it is 4.9 millimeters high as opposed to 6.5. So there is a decent difference in the height between these two as well. The eagle-eyed among you would have seen that these particular models are non-date models. We do have the crown, obviously, with a lovely Tudor rose. As with other people, I'm a little bit disappointed that the Tudor rose has moved from the face of the watch where it used to be onto the side, but it is what it is. It's a two-position winder. It is a hacking mechanism, which means that when you pull out the crown, you can stop the second hand for extra accuracy when you're setting the watch. And it does have this external gasket here, if you can see the black line that's running around it, which helps to add to the water resistance of the watch. Which brings us to the water resistance rating on this watch. It's 200 meters. Do I need that? No. Do I personally go diving? No, as do probably 90% of the people who own dive watches don't either. So 200 meters is absolutely more than adequate for beach wear or swimming. And let's be fair, if you're having to test this out to 200 meters, either you are having a very personally bad day or you've dropped it over the side of the ferry. The brushed finish is continued from the top of the watch down the strap. At the bottom we'll find a very secure clasp, which is polished with Tudor on the inside and brushed on the outside, so you don't have to worry too much about scratches when you're laying it with your wrist on a table. Weight-wise, this comes in at about 172 grams on my scales. It has got a decent amount of weight to it, so if you are a person who likes that comforting feel of a heavy watch, absolutely it's for you. If you are not a fan of heavy watches, you prefer a lighter watch, you might want to go and try one of these on in store before you put an order in online. Over the last few months that I've owned the Black Bay, it's very much become a daily wearer for me when I'm not at work, irrespective of whether I need a decent waterproof watch on for a day or not. I like it for several reasons. It wears a lot of hats very well. It wears fairly dressily, with a smart polo shirt or a short sleeve shirt for a casual day out. It's a fantastic choice. It wears well on a NATO strap. It also looks fantastic on a thick vintage leather strap, which helps to add to the whole vintage aesthetic that they were going for with the Black Bay when they designed it. I personally like the weight of this watch. It is a criticism of the watch labelled by some, which we'll come back to in a little bit, but it's reassuringly heavy. You know you've got a quality timepiece on your wrist, even though weight is not necessarily a sign of reliability, and like said by Boris the Blade, personally I like a decent weight on my wrist. Next we come to the accuracy. You really can't compare this to some Japanese watches that are coming out and other watches when it comes to comparing to Swiss. You have 1,000, 1,500 pound watches out there which have a stated accuracy rating of -15 to +30 a day, which is phenomenally inaccurate if you were to wear it every day over a month. You could be looking at 15 minutes fast. This gains, as I've said, a few seconds a day, and maybe once a week, once a month, I will knock it back 30 seconds or a minute, and we're back in play with accurate GMT. Then I do like the visibility of this watch. It's extremely easy to read. The anti-reflective coating works well. I've tested this in water. It works really well underwater as well. Whatever scenario you're in, it's a very legible watch. The only time I wouldn't be reaching for this one was if I knew I was going to be out all night. Even if it was a social event, I would personally go for something a little bit more loom. If I was going to need to be checking my watch at silly o'clock in the morning, I'd probably be reaching something dressy, but better loom and maybe some tritium on it. And coming back to the weight, it's an oft-said criticism that I have come across in forums and online and on reviews that it's too thick. it's too top heavy. And it is a heavy watch, as I said. It is slightly top heavy because of the height of it. It does pitch slightly forward on your wrist, but it's a diver. This is not a dress watch. It is not designed to be worn under a tightly cuffed shirt. If you are buying this with an eye to wearing it with a suit, it is not going to fit under a tight cuff. It will not fit under a tight cuff at a wedding or a black tie event. But then again, for me, that would be a little bit of a social faux pas anyway. Why would you wear a dive watch with a smart suit or a wedding suit or a black tie wear? I personally would be reaching something much thinner, a dress watch with a leather strap. It's just not what it's intended for, so I don't think it's really entirely fair criticism. You wouldn't, after all, buy a 17-seater SUV and then complained it didn't fit in your one-car garage when you knew you only had a one-car garage in the first place. And moving on from the size or weight, I often find that used as a reason for 58 owners to say that they didn't buy this model, that it is just too big, it is just a bit too tall. But for me, yeah, I certainly believe that that is the case, but I think it's also an excuse slightly. And this is no offense to 58 owners out there, but it's a hugely popular watch. It's absolutely everywhere. You go into some bars, you can find many people wearing the 58. And imagine if you went out and bought a 58, or let's say in this case, a particular shirt or a particular brand of aftershave, and then you went to an event a month later and all your friends were there, and they're all wearing that exact same shirt, or wearing that exact same aftershave, and you're all then sat there rather awkwardly around a table with no one saying anything, and then somebody crops up with, well, I tried the other shirt, but it was just too big, and everyone nods in agreement, saying, oh, yeah, that's what I did as well, to excuse away the fact that they're all wearing the Black Bay 58. So for me, I don't like to follow a herd. I like to be a little bit individual. And this is quite a markedly different watch when you put it side to side with the 58. It is clearly a different watch, which makes it more attractive for me. If you like the 58 and you want something a little thinner, yeah, absolutely go for it. It's a beautiful watch, but don't discount this larger 41mm version. I have skinny wrists, about 6.5-inch wrists, tiny wrists, and it wears really, really well. Look how curved the bottom edge of that is. It sits on your wrist fantastically well, despite the fact that it is a larger watch. Next up on the oft-heard gripes regarding the Tudor Black Bay is that it's a cheap Submariner, in inverted commas, and really, I don't follow that at all. It's a very different watch. It's a very different aesthetic. It behaves differently. It has a 60-click bezel as opposed to 120 on the Submariner, for example. And if you stack it up next to a Submariner, and we will be having a Submariner on in a few episodes' time, we'll be able to see that, again, no offense to Submariner owners, in some respects, it's arguably a better watch. It has a longer service period. It has better anti-magnetic properties because of the silicon parts that are in it. It's also distinctly cheaper. At retail, you can nearly have 3 Black Bays for the price of one single Submariner. Is it as good looking a watch as a Submariner? I would actually argue no. I do prefer the aesthetic of the Submariner, I will admit. But what I don't prefer is having to try and find a stockist, which I tell you for now, if any of you ever haven't tried buying a Rolex Submariner from a dealership, it's just not going to happen. You can walk into a Tudor dealership, say, I want that watch, pay your money and go. You do not have to beg for the privilege of buying a watch. And when you walk into a Tudor authorised dealer, you will find the watches there on the shelves. Walk into a authorised dealer for Rolex, you will find either empty shelves or lines of shelves with watches that are empty. They are just cases. They are for display purposes only. And if you are asked to join a non-existent and fantasy waiting list, waiting and waiting and waiting is exactly what you're going to do, particularly if you haven't spent a fortune on other things at that authorised dealer. So, Are there any gripes with this watch? And there are a couple. They're minor. They are minor, but I'm here to tell you what I think about these watches, so that's exactly what I'll do. The box is pretty poor, in my opinion. There are Swiss numbers out there, for instance Hamilton, whose boxes at a sixth of a price of the Tudor are much, much better. We have the bottom part. It may be stained wood. At the same time, I think it may very well be plastic as well, but when we look at the corners of the box, if we can pick this up on the camera, you can see that it's peeling away on the sides, and this has just been sat in a closet keeping it safe. We have a very poorly finished corner there. We have some more peeling away here. This is paper by the feel of it. And when we open the box up, look at the gap that we have here. Yes, it's snugly fitted in between, again, these two not particularly well fitted in pieces on the side, but that fit is really poor. I think many boxes that I own, and there's some more poor finishing up at the top, I think this is genuinely one of the worst boxes that I have. We have here a removable tray, which we can keep our spare links in, and again, it's just folded over cardboard. A little bit of plush on the top. Yeah, the box, quite disappointing, to be perfectly honest. But back to the watch itself. Do we have any gripes with the watch? Well, I have one small one, and it's with regards to the strap, really. Some people, again, have said they're not a fan of these faux rivets on the side. Personally, I don't even notice them. We have 3 extension points on the strap, which is great. The issue I have with the strap is when it comes to taking it off, and I'll show you what I mean. Now, my complaint is with this, which is the spring bar access. As I said, I like to wear this with a NATO, I like to wear this with a thick leather strap, which involves obviously taking this bracelet off. Even with a professional watch removal tool, which I have, which is a pincer kind rather than the individual bars which you use to push the spring bar over, very difficult to get them into this tiny, tiny, tiny little spring bar access port that's at the top. Very narrow, very thin, makes it quite a pig to get this off. It really is a three-handed job. So if you are going to wear this on a NATO or a leather after purchasing it, then do bear in mind you're going to need to get yourself a decent watch removal tool. It's not an expensive purchase. You can get them for £10–15 off of certain internet suppliers that are named after rivers, but you're going to need that to get this thing off. Gripes aside, it's a fantastic watch. I really enjoy it. As I said, it's a daily wearer for me when I'm outside of work. At nearly £3,000, it's not a cheap investment, but for me, I do think it is genuinely worth every penny, and I look very much forward to be able to pass this on when the time comes down through family to my son, and hopefully he will enjoy it as much as I do. But what do you think of the Black Bay Standard, the Black Bay Heritage, the Black Bay full stop, the Black Bay not 41 that is a 41? Do you prefer it to the 58? Do you not? Have you bought the 58 because you thought it was a bit too heavy? Are you considering purchasing one? Was this helpful? As ever, please do get involved in the comments. Let me know what you think. Also, I will always be appreciative of a like or a subscribe of the video if you found it helpful. And we'll see you very shortly with our next review.